And that sucks for an innocent person to hear and to have to make that kind of decision with their future.
We are the Armed Attorneys. Today we're talking about the worst kind of gun control coming from the Republican Party here in the state of Texas, and how it inadvertently sweeps up self-defenders when we're trying to go hard on crime, because we see that going on across the country. But before we begin, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting that like button. And not to bury the lead, we're talking about Texas legislature is in session. We're talking about SB 787. This is filed by Senator Joan Huffman out of Houston. Now, this is one of those deals. I think it's a response to some soft on crime DAs. Think about our big cities and wanting to go really hard on people who, aren't engaged in dangerous crimes. But
less optimistically,
yes,
it's Republicans running scared of shifting demographics in the state of Texas.
Yep.
And I don't know if I'm just angry about this particular proposal because I do think it's so scary, or if I'm just sleep deprived because my baby won't sleep and that's why I'm so mad today. But either way, I'm fired up. Let's talk about it.
Oh, you did one of those. But and so what we're talking about, this bill in particular, it modifies our ranges of punishment. That's Chapter 12 of our penal code, and it really hones in on what they're calling gun crimes. I see all these guns out committing crimes, and I'm just tired of them not getting punished adequately. So that's but what it's looking at is if there's a crime involving a firearm, one of our really bad crimes. This is what we used to call 3G offenses. Now they're 42A054 crimes. Woof, no need to know any of that. But if you have a crime committed with a firearm, they want to raise the mandatory minimum to 10 years.
Yes, and this is Senate Bill 787, filed by Joan Huffman, who is a state senator for Texas out of kind of the Houston area. She's got some district in Harris County, some district, sort of in our surroundings. She is a Republican. She's a former prosecutor turned judge, very smart lawyer. However, what we have essentially is a Republican representative bargaining away your gun rights. For what reason? Why are we pandering to these people? Why are we doing it? I don't know. But what we've got is, as Richard said, this mandatory minimum for gun crimes, for crimes in which there is a deadly weapon finding, which, sounds good in theory. You think, someone's committing robbery with a deadly weapon. We've got a video on a self-defense robbery shooting not too long ago where, it's scary. You see someone come in and point a gun at you, take your money. They should have a 10-year minimum prison term. However, aggravated robbery is still a first-degree felony, which means what, Richard?
Yeah, it's punishable by 5 to 99 years.
To 99 years of life, right? So you can still look at the facts and say, no. You're going to prison for the rest of your life. What we do when we take away that minimum of 5 years and we up it to 10 years if you've used a gun is we hurt the self-defenders. Who else, Richard, gets 5 years for shooting someone? Yeah. Who else? Who else but self-defenders? Who else?
Yeah, that's the rare scenario where it comes up. Well, and we even go back a step further and not even, let's say we don't even go to trial. Whenever you increase the mandatory minimums, and this is something I would expect out of like Chicago, not out of Texas. But when you increase the minimums, especially and you're honed in on firearm crime or gun crime, what it does is it really impacts the plea bargaining process, because there's lots of cases where, maybe you have a gray area self-defense that turns into like a manslaughter or, a really long probation or abuse of a corpse, or, we have all these different scenarios. Well, they're basically doubling that minimum and kind of undermining the ability, I think, of people to kind of, if I'm a prosecutor and my hammer just got twice as big, I understand the want to go after criminals, but they're going to sweep up a ton of self-defenders.
Yes, and it scares people away from trials. So we already see this. In Texas, we have something called a 25 to life penalty. So if you are a habitual criminal in Texas, most of our self-defenders are not, but I can tell you I have one who is, and we are going to trial in his case in a month now. And it scares people away from trial. I did not commit this act. I had a troubled youth. But this is the act I did not commit. I was defending myself. And now it's really, really hard to say, I don't want to accept the 4 years in prison that you've offered me as a plea bargain, even though I know I'm not guilty, because if the jury finds me guilty, which they can, juries are, I know that everyone's like, if you guys were good lawyers, oh, you would win every case. The only lawyer who has won every case is a lawyer who's never tried a case or a liar.
Yeah, I was going to say, or a liar.
But you know, I mean,
they're wild animals.
Yeah.
Juries are wild animals.
You have to have that conversation with the client. Look, I know that you're not guilty. You have 4 guaranteed right here. If the jury finds you guilty because they are wild, you get no less than 25. And that sucks for an innocent person to hear and to have to make that kind of decision with their future. But that's what we're doing here. And it's wrong. We have the range of punishment set for a reason, and taking away discretion is wrong.
Yeah, and Texas is unique in this regard. You know, a lot of states, judges assess punishment. We see this on the federal level. We have sentencing guidelines. In Texas, just to catch folks up a little bit, juries assess punishment here in the state of Texas for, I'll say, most jury trials. I mean, you can theoretically go to the judge for punishment if you want.
But we don't.
Yeah, we
just
don't.
Conventional wisdom.
Yeah,
you don't.
But because it is kind of a hard proposition. Hey, this jury that just found me guilty, I want them also to decide my punishment. I see where people get a little scared by that as well. But it's pretty unique that we have this huge range and it's up to a jury. And so that makes the stakes kind of high here in Texas. But this is the most dangerous type of gun control, I will say, because it's coming from, you know, a super majority party here in the state of Texas. As this bill is currently written, this cannot pass.
No. And here's just you're probably like, oh, minimums, guns, I don't know. It kind of sounds, this is the practical effect. Richard strangles someone to death. In cold blood. He's just mad. I shoot someone in self-defense, but I mess up. I'm scared when I should not have been that scared. We have had clients do this, right? In particular, a couple of years ago, we had an old man client who was just terrified. He shot when he shouldn't have shot. He got convicted and he got a very low sentence because the jury essentially said, you know, you really shouldn't have shot, but we understand you were genuinely scared, if not objectively reasonable in your fear. So Richard's a cold-blooded strangler. I am a self-defender who overreacted because I'm terrified. I got my baby with me, whatever the scenario. Richard can be sentenced to 5 years, and I can be sentenced to no less than 10 because I used the gun.
Yeah. See,
it makes no sense.
That's the kind of absurd result we get. Now, there are, and I see the laudable goal of wanting to punish kind of repeat habitual offenders, violent offenders, but how do we kind of sort the good from the bad, from the self-defenders, from, you know, these people who are going out and committing robberies and killing someone, or burglaries and killing someone? I think there's a way to rehab this bill.
There is a way to rehab this bill, and luckily this is part of what we do. For everyone out there who's like, what are you two doing? This is part of what we do. We lobby the legislature. We write bills. We try to fix bad bills. I do think this is fixable if Senator Huffman will listen and be amenable to some change.
Yeah, I think, and I think this is Emily's idea. I don't want to take credit for this. But there is a elegant solution to this. If we just focus on the people who are unlawfully possessing firearms.
Yes.
I think that actually fixes it.
It fixes it because it's taking your felons and your criminals and your people who are,
committing robberies,
in a bar, in a school, having the firearm in places they're not supposed to.
People are possessing stolen guns.
Yes. It takes all those people and says, all right, you are punished harshly, even though I still am not a huge fan of taking discretion away, but it's better. It's a fix.
Right.
And it takes the people who are just walking out of the HEB to their car, scared, attacked, and maybe shouldn't have been so scared because it's the bag boy, but he's like, looks really aggressive tonight. The cart boy, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Don't shoot your cart boy.
Don't shoot the cart boy. But it lets those people have that minimum because they're not in unlawful possession of the weapon.
Yeah, I think that would probably fix it. But we do have an action item for you, especially if you are here in the state of Texas. It's really important to reach out to your representatives. We're going to have a link in the description below to find out who represents you if you don't know already. SB 787, you need to let them know, hey, in its current form, this thing discriminates against self-defenders.
Against the law-abiding gun owner.
Yeah, and so, we all know this. We're preaching to the choir here, but these kind of criminal punishments, I mean, they really affect the law-abiding.
They do.
They hurt them way more than the criminal.
Yes. We're in the courtroom defending the people charged with murder. We can tell you this will be bad for self-defenders. So, it will.
Yeah, so we hope you enjoy this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And if you live in the state of Texas and you have friends who are interested in what's happening this legislative session, send them a link to our channel. We're going to be covering lots of Texas bills. We're going to keep you educated and updated. Until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.